So, welcome to a much belated video. Most of this was shot in Star Citizen version 4.7. I spent several weeks pulling together a number of different excursions, trying to play some different gameplay loops, and really bring together what other things were to be done within the verse that I used to play a long, long time ago and just hadn't really touched in a while. And that's kind of what this video was going to be. I was going to break it up into multiple segments and have a little bit of focus on them. But when they pushed up and dropped 4.8 a little faster than I initially thought, all of that went out the window. So I almost didn't utilize this footage, but after weeks of recording it, I didn't want to just throw it away because with 4.8, some of these loops and cycles are still viable and worth looking at in the game. So this is going to be completely unscripted, just jumping in and having a bit of fun in the game and then talking about it. So obviously one of the first things I did, which I do later on, is I loved the exploration, just setting up an expedition and going out there. One of the loops, again, I'll talk a bit more about this later, is on surface mining. I'd seen it, it seemed janky and wasn't very good, so obviously I didn't play it very much. This was my first attempt really doing that, but the purpose of showing this here is a different thing that wasn't in the game prior that I thought was really cool to actually kind of see in the game now. You can see my suit looks really dirty and messed up. And when I go look at my inventory space here in just a second, you'll have a better look at it. But you can also see the dust blowing across the surface. When I originally landed on this moon, somewhere out by Microtech, I forget which moon I was out exploring, and there's my suit looking all damaged and dirty, also partly glitched, I'm sure. I didn't land with a heavy wind, but after a little while of being on the surface, this wind formed. And when I originally drove a Rover around and then flew my bike about Dragonfly for a little bit, and then I got the snub ship out, the Pisces, flew around looking for something else to do and saw the little thing to mine, so that's what I did. But when I took this ship out of the Carrack and lifted off, you can kind of see it here. I'm drifting a little bit in the wind. It's not as bad here as it was originally when I lifted out of the Carrack. But that was kind of surprising because as soon as I got out of the hangar area within the Carrack, I started drifting with the wind, which I thought was just amazing. The problem was when I got out of my ship, which if you noticed, I kind of set the back up to protect my exit from the ship, so I wouldn't just be jumping out into the wind. Well, that's not quite what happened. I hit the ground, and as soon as the game transferred my character from my ship to the world, I blew about 50 yards away, rolled around on the ground, and got severely injured. I managed to heal somewhat, but then had to kind of deal with damaged undersuit and light armor and have to get back to my ship and finish what I was doing. I loved seeing the Carrack out here. I still really love exploration. I just wish there was a bit more to actually explore. I know there's some caves, but they're still very broken. Some of them are easier to get into and you can't get out of. I did go into one, but when I got underground, I could no longer get out. I could get out, but there was like a surface map over me. It was a glitch. A polygon made it look like the surface had grown over the top of me, so I had to fiddle around for a minute before I could get out. You'll also notice that I can't close the back door. There's a glitch in whatever this version was, where if I close the door to my Pisces, I can't open it from the outside. The only way I got it to open was using all of my light pistol ammo and blowing the crap out of the back door, damaging it so that it kind of fell open. Which does make it a little bit hard to deal with landing, but it is the way it is. Now you can see I am trying to line up my ship, but I am trying to fight the wind as well. I didn't land the Carrack expecting the wind because it wasn't windy when I landed at night. And you saw kind of the sunset, which was just a beautiful thing to sit and watch with the water there. So it's really pretty to go out and explore, and I highly recommend it. And that's one of my favorite loops. I spent hours out in space just exploring stuff. Now, moving on, something I have not done in a very long time is actually do some sort of fighting. It's not really why I bought the game, but with 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5, I fell in love with some of the dogfighting in the original flight model and some of the early revisions of the flight model. I spent a lot of free fly missions picking between the Sabre and the Super Hornet. Ultimately, for my play, I picked the Super Hornet, which is still a wonderful ship. The way it maneuvers, the way it flies, I still love. It is much better than it was in earlier iterations of the flight model, whatever its current version is. But the weaponry on this ship is so trash now. It's not a Super Hornet at all. I know it's not a full mil-spec ship at this point, but like the original Super Hornet that was in 2.5 before they started ruining the weaponry could go head to head with a Saber, but they were tailored towards different flight characteristics, and that's what made me love them. The Saber had bigger guns that hit harder, but since they weren't gimbaled, it was more geared towards a HOTAS player who had better skill at aiming. Since I usually play with a mouse and keyboard, the light gimbal use on the Super Hornet works very well for me. You still have to get very close to accurate before the gimbals will track, but the Super Hornet can output a lot more firepower, making it fairly equal because it's going to land more of its hits. Whatever they've done in this, as you can see here, this is a level 1 basic flight combat training mission, and this, I forget what this stupid ship is called, but it's pretty much already trashed. And I've boosted the power levels into my weapons, and I'm unloading on these individual components and on different parts of the ship, just trying to blow it up, and it is taking a ridiculous beating that just does not seem aligned. I do have larger, I think, bulldogs. I think those are the small ones. I forget what they're called. They might all be bulldogs, different levels, but the ones under the wings are slightly bigger, and then I do have physical bullets that are in there as well, but they don't really do much on this. At least I tried using them, and they just didn't do much, so... That's my biggest complaint. The Super Hornet is not a Super Hornet anymore. It is very weak, and that is hugely disappointing because I remember fighting some other ships that were supposed to be weaker than me, but they were just decimating me. I'm totally down with adjusting shields and moving things around. It's not as easy as it used to be in prior versions, but I'm okay with doing that, and I'm fine with moving where I'm stacking the energy. That's perfectly fine with me, but I want my weapons to actually output some damage. The biggest issue in some of this that I ran into was I was fighting a MISC Freelancer Max, I think it was, or the Dur, I forget which one, probably the Dur, where it is more durable, but I couldn't even touch it, even with the ballistic ammo. The stock weapons on this ship do nothing. The only component I could even remotely come close to damaging on that ship was the weapons on the sides, the main gun turrets. The rest of that ship I couldn't touch. And I could get the shields down. It took all my energy multiple times and a lot of maneuvering and tracking to even touch it, but I couldn't do any damage. And I'm sorry, this is a Super Hornet. It is an attack-focused ship. It should be able, over time, to do a bit of damage enough to take out that ship. These are NPCs. This is stock missions. You can see I'm pulling up the different combat training sessions here. I should be able to take some of those out. Now, if a player has upgraded their shield generator, upgraded armor and weaponry, totally different scenario, but I'm talking stock for stock. I'm not saying this ship should be able to go take on a Polaris or some massive capital ship, but I should still be able to do something to it. And a Freelancer is not a big ship. It's really a small ship still, medium to light craft, even if it's a slightly more durable and attack-focused ship. I should have to put in a lot more work to damage it, but I should still be able to hit it and damage it. Now, I apologize, speaking very quickly and moving on. This is a very shaky video because I wanted to include most of the combat. This is sped up. I am fighting a couple sabers, which are supposed to be my equal, slightly more powerful weapons, similar maneuverability, speed. I think the saber is a bit faster and slightly more maneuverable, but it does not have gimbaled weapons, and it does not have a potential for a second player in the back. So again, I apologize for having this sped up and making it quite so jittery, but this was an interesting fight. The first two you saw, they were bugged out. The NPCs weren't moving. They were stuck. In this one, I'm nailing this saber, and you can see the hits registering on the craft where I'm landing them, and I am doing virtually no damage. On my side, I'm dodging a lot of their shots. I am taking some straights. I do take a few hits, but I have also buffed my shields and my weaponry. I've lowered my engines and my sensors to 1 bar of energy so that I could buff the shields and the weapons so that I could have extra time shooting just to try and keep their shields down and damage them. Again, this is a 200% playback. You've seen all the shots that I've taken on this guy. I am using the basic weaponry on it, and I have still done very little damage to the ship. Occasionally, I cycle the weapons to my ballistics. I don't know if I have it in this video, but for the most part, I'm just flying around dogfighting them. There were 3 sabers that were out here that I needed to attack. I wasn't allowed to use missiles yet. That was with the Freelancer, but even my missiles didn't touch the Freelancer, which was really disappointing. I'm supposed to be able to take it out, but I think it's bugged or glitched, but I did nothing. Anyway, the NPCs in this were really boring. Honestly, I felt the Tressa missions back in 2.3 through 2.6 were so much more fun. The AI was still pretty stupid in the way it was flying and the NPCs handling tactics. These guys are just interested in literally flying right into you and crashing, which humorously enough is the whole reason they wanted to change the flight model, because everybody was orbiting each other. Well, now they're full on jousting. They literally just fly into you. I died 3 times in this because the other players, the NPCs, were literally just crashing into me. I managed to evade one, but it destroyed my ship, so I couldn't do anything and I had to kill myself. The second one, I died. My ship was fine, but I was spinning out of control and eventually crashed into the surface of Yella here. And the third time, I think I actually blew up when they smashed into me, which is in part why I started running with full shields boosted and everything else. But these ships, like this one, is similar to the snub ship that drops out of the back of a Connie. It's not that strong of a ship, and I'm wailing on these things to do basic damage and take them out. Again, I'm only saying that because I'm flying what's supposed to be a super Hornet, not a Bumblebee. Right now, this feels like a Bumblebee, and it does not feel super or Hornety at all, especially when compared to these little ships. And you can see me, I'm doing vertical and lateral movements to try and dodge when they joust. Thankfully, this ship is really maneuverable. I love the way it flies, but the combat is just trash. I don't enjoy fighting NPCs. Some of the players out there are probably going to be more fun, but the ones that are active out there, it might be kind of cool. You can see he just pegged me. I managed to dodge it enough and recover, but it was still a pretty hard hit on my left wing. But anyway, a lot of the players that are out there now that would be willing are either going to be griefers OP'd, or they've cheated to get money drops and have super highly upgraded their ships, which again, I'm not against. I was contemplating doing an upgrade on both this and my Prospector before everything fell apart. But like, this tiny little ship full on careened into me and is still fighting me. I don't get it. That's just insane. But combat, I just avoid. There he goes again. A friend just creamed into me. It's just nuts. I don't get it. Not only the fact that that's their whole methodology for flight, and that's the best AI they could come up with in this day and age after how many years of development now? The old stuff was better. By the same token, the hit registry, all that stuff, it just doesn't do any damage. I thought about updating my weapons, as I just said, but it didn't feel it was worth it with the changes coming into the game. It is something I am not against doing, but my concern is a stock Super Hornet should still feel super. Does not have to be the top tier fighter in the game. I expect to want to upgrade these things, but I also expect a stock ship that's supposed to be a combat-focused fighter to do some combat, and it just doesn't. Now, moving on into another loop that I haven't played in a very long time. This is a cargo haul. I did a couple of these, and they were kind of fun. I initially thought this was one I had to go collect it from one of those drop boxes. I'm in my Freelancer. Turns out this is not how that went. And you have to be very careful with reading the instructions. I did read them, but it just didn't click in my mind because I saw cargo elevator and I thought something different. The package is for me out on a cargo elevator. I have to go grab it from the elevator once I land, manually load it into my ship, and then bring it back to the cargo elevator here and deliver it back to the internal storage of the station. Then I can claim my prize. This wouldn't be such a big deal if it wasn't for a couple of bugs that I'll talk about while we're en route here and doing all of this. I didn't show it, but I did start my first few weeks back in 4.7. I was supposed to be back in 4.0, but it was super broken. So when I came back, I spent my usual couple of weeks doing my mining, changing how I did mining. I didn't really record any of it because I've already talked about mining and it wasn't really all that different. They did make it a little better. I have to go work a little harder to do stuff, and I found some better areas to mine, but it was the same loop. The main issues were that when I was trying to load my ship from the terminal where I refine it, you can only load 1 or 2 cycles into your ship before the rest of it just will not load your ship. And I believe this is due to a glitch. What ends up happening is all of your containers, instead of being mapped to the internal storage capacity and SCUs, it takes up an SCU, but physically it only represents 1 SCU inside your ship per cargo type. So if you have a box, a straight cube, every single straight cube will be stuffed in that one little spot and glitched. And as soon as you grab that one little box to move it, the rest of them just explode out of it all over the room, and then you have to go grab all of them and put them back. Well, I died twice with that happening trying to load my Carrack up because I had like 9 or 10 different mining runs, and I just wanted to do a big cargo haul in my Carrack, and it was awesome. It was also extremely annoying because when I got back, to have to go through and sell every freaking thing individually was the most tedious and annoying thing I have ever done, because there's so many different grades of ice and metals and everything for the quality ranges, which is great, but I need a select all, sell all or something instead of each individual grade, one box at a time. It was so tedious. Now, I did get here to the station and I realized that from some of those mining runs, when I was hauling some of the cargo, I did use this ship. I had landed and repaired it, and I had taken the cargo out of it, but I think when I died, the server glitched and kind of reset everything. So this ship that I, at this moment, thought was empty is actually full of cargo. I did have some empty spaces in there, but it was glitched, and I didn't want to risk moving anything around to make it easier, and you can see the doors were out of sync, and there was a lot going on with these ships. The cargo run itself was pretty straightforward and easy. I mistakenly put my ship away here thinking that, as I said, I had to go to the little package kiosk and pick it up, being an idiot and not having read it. So I come back and pull my ship out once I went back and actually properly read what I was supposed to do, which we'll cut to in just a second. But loading it up is actually kind of fun. The organization, I guess you have to be kind of a weird mental individual to go out and do that, but it really just appealed to organization and stacking everything up. Even in my Carrack, when I was stacking tons of boxes up, I really enjoyed finding ways to stack everything in there. And look at that. There's a box already inside of it. That's the glitch I'm talking about. Now, in this case, it was only 2 packages, so it didn't just explode around the room. But you can see as I tried to drop the package, it kept sliding, friction was all messed up, it started floating before it moved around and eventually stayed on the floor. When I was loading my Carrack, I filled 1 entire cargo hold, ceiling to floor, and I had 2 boxes in my second cargo hold. That's how much I had ended up mining with just my prospector over a couple of days. The way I changed my setup, which I may film in 4.8 once that version starts working again, seeing as this is currently June 16th, and it was only last week that the system finally let me upgrade to that version of the game. But it was really kind of fun to stack everything in there and see just how much that ship can hold and pull it all out. And trying to make it efficient, I was pulling everything out of the station cargo hold, staging it on the floor like I did here, and you can see it randomly flying around, and now I'm trying to catch it before it blows up on my ship. But staging everything so that I could go up into my Carrack's cargo hold, and once in the cargo hold, I would lift everything up and inside because you still can't drop your cargo pods. And this is where I realized, oh, my cargo's full. Interesting. Like, I went and sold all this stuff. Why is it still here? But anyway, going up into the cargo pods on the Carrack and loading all that up was incredibly fun, and it was kind of fun to just figure out how to organize it, stash it. And you can see how it's glitched. It's trying to put this cargo pod on the floor inside of others. And that's kind of what it does. It just glitches right into all of that. When I landed and I completed this mission unboxing these two, which I stacked on the end just so I could guarantee I could get them out again, I went over and sold all the stuff out of the ship. It was still there. It was just glitched and really screwy, but that's what happened. Yeah. Cargo running's not bad. You do need a decent ship to be able to haul larger amounts of cargo. The Freelancer is a pretty good ship for it. I still don't like the view out the front window, but it does have a decent sized cargo hold. I still stand that the airlock needs to go away out of the roof of the middle cargo hold, and that just needs to become where the turret is placed so that you don't have to stack cargo in there, and then you can use more of the back of the cargo hold instead of letting the ladder come down to get you up into the turret. That would make so much more sense placement and functionality wise. But there's a lot of glitches in the Freelancer, so I don't recommend using it, at least in 4.7. I'm assuming it's going to be fairly similar in 4.8. Now, when I pulled in here, you saw that ship that had been abandoned out there. There'd been a couple server errors this night and a few issues when I was doing this loop, so that ship just got glitched and stuck out there. So I was trying to back out quite carefully, so I didn't end up crashing. And yeah, normally when you pull your ship up, it kind of faces the exit, but I, again, had to go back and come back again because I glitched and messed up. Anyway, cargo running is pretty fun. There are some where you have to go to different areas and grab stuff, even different systems. There were so many glitches and complaints in world chat, which is kind of why I keep it up, because it's pure cancer and toxicity, but it does sometimes help me know kind of what's going on with the server that I'm on. Watch this glitch. Magic, the door's open, and then the door closed right as I walked through it again. Glitch. Anyway, the servers are so janked and messed up. People were trying to go to Pyro and Nix and some of the other systems, but every time they'd go in, they'd end up back at their system, and they're trying to log out, log back in, and they just couldn't get it to work consistently. And I'm like, if I'm flying a cargo run in a ship that's already glitched on servers that are already having issues, yeah, I'm not going to waste my time. So I didn't bother going to any of the other systems yet because everything's just so broken that it's not worth it. So it is a bit frustrating, but when things come together and work as intended, oh my God, there is so much fun to be had with some of these different loops. And it does appeal to a lot of different people. Like, not everybody's going to want to load cargo methodically into a ship to make it fit. The organized person inside of me, that part of my brain is tickled by it. It was incredibly boring and tedious, and at first I thought it was annoying. Throw on some nice electronica music and just spend 2 hours loading up my Carrack, and before I knew it, I was having a fun night. So now, back in the Carrack, I mentioned that I did a bit of exploration. I had gone out to Microtech. I was trying to find some flora and fauna parts of the verse here that I could enjoy and explore and get some better scenery out of to explore. Didn't really find it. The first time I went out to one of the moons of Microtech, which turned out to be a bust because it was just kind of gray and boring. Another one I flew down to was really neat, except that it was super glitched. From orbit down, it was clear skies and smooth sailing. When I got to the surface, it was super foggy, which was neat and made takeoff absolutely epic, weaving through the mountains on my way out. But there really wasn't much to explore or look there. So I came over to Hurston. I didn't really expect to find a lot of plants, but I hadn't been out to Hurston in a long time. It is basically a toxic waste dump, and the map, I don't know if you could see it there, but the map is glitched where all the waypoints are down within the planet itself, not actually on the surface. So it made figuring out where I wanted to go a little bit difficult. I do speed this up, but instead of kind of rushing through it, I kind of wanted to fly in from orbit, come down on the surface, have a bit of fun, and just go for a proper exploration. So I was enjoying the view here from the pilot seat as we came down onto the planet. I'd picked an area that looked like it had a bit of water and a flat plain. It really wasn't water, it was just different types of deposits on the surface that gave it a different texture and look. But way up here, it looked kind of smooth and nice. It was a beautiful night at sunset. You can see I turn around flying off this, kind of flat lake bed area. And I was trying to get close enough to a couple of buildings that I wanted to investigate later. You can see I'm supposedly down inside the surface now, which is glitched, but I wanted to come onto the surface. I hadn't really explored Hurston much when it first came out. I didn't really care for the look. The water killed you on touch because that was messed up at the time it came out, but I thought this would be fun. And from this view coming down at sunset, it was really pretty. I enjoyed it. It felt like an alien world. It was just fun. I felt kind of like I was coming in on the surface from the movie Prometheus on my ship. And it was pretty cool. I really love the Carrack. I love the whole exploration dynamic. I just wish there was some more reward to it. I also wish that they would fix the bug that when you get out of the chair, the ship stops. If I decouple my ship, it should continue to fly in the direction I put it in, because I wanted to come up here to the flying bridge, which is cool, but honestly, for what I was doing here, I probably should have stayed in the pilot seat where I would have had a better view of the ground. But as far as looking around the wide surface area, this was a great view coming in on the surface of the planet and viewing everything. Now, my goals with this were to find something different to mine. At this point, I'd done a couple of different surface level mining, and it was always the same green, weird stone. I hadn't seen any of the other supposed plantation or anything to look at. And I hadn't really seen any different bases because I'd never really been out to this part. On the planets that I'd been most familiar with, all the mining centers, the facilities, they all looked kind of the same. So I wanted to see something different and kind of go exploring somewhere different. And that's kind of what this surface was. The surface area was supposedly different so that I could enjoy it a little more. But once we get down here, we'll run into some issues with this particular surface that were very difficult to overcome and might be very frustrating depending on how you're getting there. Still really annoyed that the map isn't quite aligned. You can also see that I'm not coming straight down to the surface. I'm coming in at a nice gentle angle, and we'll get some visual bugs like that one there where the overall cloud layer looked super foggy and then magically it cleared up and I could see the surface again. I don't know if I was flying through that cloud behind me. I did love the fact that there are clouds that I could fly through, and it created so much more depth and dynamic visuals to this that is really what I've been looking for and what really makes the game pop for me right now since everything else is so broken. My original package for this game was a 315p for exploration. I wanted a beautiful ship that was fast, maneuverable, good in atmosphere, and would let me get around and have some fun. I overall love the redesign. I did fly it a bit, but it's also got some issues, so that was frustrating. I saw several deposits here on the surface that I wanted to come in and investigate, so I found kind of a decent little area now as I'm coming down faster. Trying to find an area where I could set my ship down decently, looking for a relatively flat surface area. I flew over it and came around from the back because I wanted to, again, head back the other way when I get there. And there was enough stuff, quote unquote, in this reasonable area that I thought this would be a good place to set down. As I got here, the sun obviously was much lower in the horizon and it was darker, so I fired up the landing lights, which I love that function and how bright they are. But I noticed there might be a slight problem as the surface is not quite as flat as it looked. There's a ton of rocky outcroppings. And what this made me feel like right here was that I was coming down in the movie Pitch Black or something with Vin Diesel, with all those aliens on the surface and all those like termite mounds and stuff. That's what this reminded me of. It gave me super vibes like that. Loved seeing the dust kicked up by my hovering thrusters as I VTOL my way down to the surface here and land. I did come external because I wanted to make sure that I would actually land in reasonably smooth ground and that the nose wouldn't be messed up and the door would actually come down properly. And then you can see me kind of forcing the thrusters down to make sure I'm on the surface smoothly before I cut the engines and allow the ship to stay down. Kind of cool as everything dissipated. Loved the view. This ship is so big and it gets a sense of scale when you hit the surface. And I know there's many bigger ships. It's just, I love the way this ship looks and is lined up and illuminated. It is still my favorite ship, even though I have a few desires that I wish they'd done slightly differently. But I do wish I could drop those cargo pods on the surface. That would make life so much better. Anyway, now that we've spent 25 minutes doing Star Trek the Motion Picture panning around my ship, let's get out of the bridge and head down into the ship to grab my craft, so that way I can actually have to do some stuff. I did jump in the turret. Not much to show there. I just shot it and then got out of it. Anyway, we come down here, hop on my bike because I thought this would be a great vehicle to go cruising around the surface in. Up and down the mountains without too much issue, but there was a big flat plain nearby that I wanted to go ripping down. And the last time I really rode the bike, it was a bit jittery in surface mode, but you could switch the flight mode. I forget which button does it. And I double checked, triple checked it here because I wanted to get airborne. And before, you didn't have quite as much speed, but you could float slightly higher up by holding the space bar for your vertical lifting. This just didn't do it. I liked how it switched the weapons over to like a shotgun shot, which was pretty awesome. But the ship does not get up off the ground, and it was also tripping me out with the way the HDR lighting was screwing with the visibility here. You can see I was trying to come up and down and go around and find things, but I could not get the ship to control very well. And then I saw there was some plant life nearby, so I wanted to hop off and take a look. I didn't go very far. I kind of landed right by it. But that's what I wanted to come over here first and take a look at. And my bike looked like it was broken sitting there on the ground, and there's the sun coming back on, so that's slightly annoying. This is really the first plant that I've encountered. It looks definitely alien and weird. I'm not really sure what I'm harvesting on it, and I wasn't really sure how I was supposed to harvest it. Wondered if I could blow it up or damage it or something like that. Obviously, that's not the case, so I go up and I realize, oh, I just need to pick up the items. So I started picking them up, and I still have no idea what I'm supposed to do with these other than just weird alien plant life on the surface. I did sell them. I don't recall making a lot of money off of them. I never got to sell any of the stuff I'd manually refined because you have to put it in like a storage container so that you can then drop it off at a refinery. But I don't think you can do much with that. I don't even know if you can even go through that loop completely. There were a couple of plants up here. I picked up all the stuff off of them, just trying to fill up my backpack, see kind of how much it could hold and reasonably trying to gauge what the value of that would be. I did not buy any of the SCU boxes to bring with me so that I could offload my backpack into one of those boxes. I believe that's what you're intended to do. I just didn't bother with that. There was the third plant that I go grab. I was also enjoying seeing the ship off in the distance as the sun was setting and the view of space. There was a while there, I think it was 2.6, where they got rid of all the nebula and everything else in space as they were changing systems, and it really was not as attractive to just look up at a blank set of stars. This is much more appealing and attractive and really beautiful to sit here and take in, especially when realizing that I took off from a station, flew out here, landed on the surface, and I'm going out and about. I also like the fact that my headlights off my ship are cascading that far out from the ship, helping me see my ship. So we get back on here, and I was going to fly over to one of the other areas, and this is where I started running into some issues with it's not a maglev, but it's like a anti-grav or levitation type of bike that you're supposed to be able to get a little bit of altitude or come down to the surface and gain more speed, depending on where you're putting your engine output. And it used to be you just had to change the flight model to go between those. But in this case, I just got stuck near the surface. And I don't know if I have it in the video here, but I caught one of the pylons on a rock. And that's where I backed out and was trying to figure out how the heck I changed where I have the flight mode option so I could try to get more airborne. And you can see I'm going down and then I'm trying to go up. I got up a little bit, but I didn't feel like I was high enough because I was still really close to everything. I was going to rip out there, but then I look down and I see all these towers of rocks and I zoom in and I'm like, I'm just going to crash into everything out there. So that's not going to be very fun considering the rocks that I'm here with, I'm already on equal ground with. So I thought I'd go the other way and loop around and try to get to a larger clearing, but I couldn't get there. I did go up and over this rock wall in front of me. You can see how close I am to these, and you can see me kind of freaking out and easing up on my forward momentum. And then I hit this bump, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just got sent sky high. I wasn't going very fast. I wasn't doing anything. I just went up, and then I stopped when I realized how high I went, and I landed on that rock, and you can see the damage that it did to my ship. And so I'm like, okay, well, I either continue out and risk blowing this thing up, or I go back to the ship now and park this and get the Rover out because I really didn't want to blow this up. So I put my tail between my legs and went right back to the ship to park this and switch over to the Rover. I'm not going to show too much of the Rover because there were several issues with that as well, seeing how many rocks there were all over the ground. But man, this surface was very different and dystopian and pretty interesting to view. Parking this thing is still a pain due to the way it flies. I don't again believe that I was able to get the right lift off the surface, but when I was there looking back at the ship, I was pretty high up. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the way it feels, that's as high as it goes now. But the Dragonfly for a surface level speeder is not very good on some of these planets like this. So let's switch over to a different vehicle now. All right, so the Rover. Again, I'm not going to show too much of the Rover here. It was interesting. I spent about 40 minutes in the Rover. I didn't go all that far away, but I did do some serious off-roading trying to get over to another hill to go investigate some other items that I wanted to mine and look at out there. Wanted to see if I could damage anything on the surface, but unfortunately no. But in that off-roading, you can't change the power. I wanted to see if I could put more juice into the engine to maybe overpower that, but really I can't do anything at the moment. So off we go, and you can see how much clutter there is on the surface here. It's not really clutter that's a problem. It's just when landing, when looking at these things, you really have to be careful because there was so many instances like this where I had to stop, backtrack, ping the radar to see what my forward option would be, see if the rock was big enough for me to go over, come outside of the Rover view because I can't see down over the dashboard. That way I could get a bit of an idea of what I'm about to hit since the ship is floating, and then go down into the nightmare and try to weave my way through everything. So let's drop ahead a little bit and down into this nightmare. It is fun to do some off-roading because the the Rover does work reasonably well, and you can actually kind of crawl down and work on physics coming up. I did bump the nose on that. It does have a good over-under angle, but at this point, I think I'm trying to get out of this nightmare that I'd gotten into for 45 minutes and get back to my ship. And I was trying to bypass as much as possible, and you can see I kind of got stuck on the hills, so I had to rotate to the side, ease into it so I didn't flip over backwards, and carefully turn to the side, build up enough momentum that I could then start turning and go up the hill as I head to these rocks. Like right now, I've floored it, and I really wish I could go faster, but I can't. And then a bit more to the side, and then cut over, gain the speed to then go up and get my way out of it. So there is a definite trick to it. You can make this Rover go places it probably shouldn't, which is exactly what I did here. But that can be part of the fun of exploring. Just be pretty careful and attentive to where you're going, because there are areas that this can get into that are very difficult to get out of. As you can see when I come up over the top here thinking, oh, this will be a nice smooth way back. Nope, I just about rolled the Rover here. So I'm carefully trying to spin the wheels as best as I can to avoid spinning out. And then I almost backed up into the same thing again. And now I'm trying to figure out where to go and where my ship is. It's crazy. It is crazy, the surface on some of these. And you can't like shoot any of the rocks out. You kind of have to just carefully pick your way through it, which is pretty realistic. I'm not complaining that it's bad. It's just I should not have gotten the Rover out in this situation. I should have seen the surface and been like, yeah, this is not a good surface or area for me to go exploring. So I did bring the Rover back to the ship at that point, and then I wanted to get in my snub ship to head out for a little bit of a fun view, but I was done with this area because I wanted to use my other landing craft and explore. So I decided that I'll just move the ship a little bit to another area that I was already planning to go to. So this area ended up being a bust. I couldn't really do much here. So I'm going to take off and carefully fly. And one of the things that you'll notice here is it's very difficult to see the horizon. So I was using the ping tool to really kind of highlight where the horizon was. You can see the stars, but in the darkness, some of these things kind of creep up on you. I also kind of angled the ship up so that I could get over some of the mountains and make sure that I was skyward so that if something came up on me, I was already aimed in the right direction as I flew off. Again, this was really fun to be able to fly with. I did spend some time looking down between my legs here because you have a good view out the bottom window of this with the way they placed it, which makes landing and flying around here so usable. I just didn't record or show all of it in this instance because I'm trying to move forward. So you can see there I'm looking down a bit. The flying bridge is really fun for certain things, but it's harder when you're trying to do surface level stuff like, excuse me, because you just don't have the best visibility because the console blocks it. Whereas here, I can literally just decouple my view and look down, straight down in free look mode, and I'm free to look everywhere I want to. So right now I'm just flying off towards the flat plane a little bit. I loved seeing some of these little bursts of like dust devils in the wind and other little things on the surface. I thought it made it really interesting and dynamic as I flew off. The headlight was still impacting a few things. I also enjoy shooting the main guns just because it breaks the monotony here. But let's fly out to this flat plane and then we'll have a little bit of different activities here. The only downside as I'm looking off to my left and right is the side thrusters are so close there on the side of the cowling here that it's hard to see everything. Well, I did fly over this deposit, and there was another deposit that I flew over, which is kind of where I come back to. I scanned them out and tried to land reasonably close to them. I wanted to test if I could get far enough away from my ship and lose it like I did back in version 3.16 or 1.7 a long time ago. That was very unnerving, so I planned this one out a lot better. Those are those red dust devils that I mentioned. They're not really true dust devils, but I just thought that the burst of red dust and clay and toxic gunk on the surface was kind of cool to see. Made it kind of fun to look at and interesting. All right, let's jump ahead and get to the surface. I'm coming out of the mountain range into the big flat plain in front of me where all those bursts of dust are. And that's where I'm going to set down, and then we're going to switch craft. All right, so we're coming down, getting closer to the surface again. There it is. I'm inspecting, looking for as much of the gunk as or rock formations and things that were blocking me. There are still some down here, but it doesn't look quite as bad from this external view. So I decide, all right, let's bring her down and land. I'm not quite sure where all the reflections are coming from off the surface, if it's reflection off of my headlights, which point forward, or my thrusters, which do put out light, but the lighting is, well, pretty at times kind of off. I'm assuming it's part from the thrusters, but it just, like the thrusters are still on now, and only when I look in a certain way does suddenly all of that light reflect off the ship, whereas right now I should still be seeing the thruster light reflecting off the ship, so don't know. I did have to make a slight correction here because one of my landing struts hit one of the rock formations, so I made a minor adjustment to get it off of that and back on the surface, where I can then disembark and go have a little look-see around. All right, let's go down to the surface now. So I am going to get the snub ship this time. I've already got the ship door open as I explained before. I came up the back entrance instead of the forward elevator because I was coming back in from being in the Rover. The surface was again too chumpy and I didn't have the right attachments for my multi-tool to repair my Dragonfly, so I didn't want to risk blowing that up by screwing around on the surface. So I figured let's hop in the snub ship and go out for a little view. This was pretty cool. Get in, get airborne. I'm curious here because I know I had taken some damage if I could repair it, but unfortunately not on the ship. I think you should be able to, but it's neither here nor there at the moment. So let's take off. The ship blasts out of there so fast. A lot of particulate in the air, which is kind of neat. And then I was going to head over there and take a look at some of those formations that I'd seen on my way in when I landed. So let's head back out. We're gonna fly over there. I'm flying pretty slow. I'm not really going full speed because I was trying to line up a direction. There's another object out here that I wanted to go out and take a look at. So again, I'm trying to fly a specific heading to maintain distance from my ship, because I hadn't flown this far away from it. Flying out here to this is the farthest that I'd been from my ship. Even in the prior one on the Microtech moon, I didn't fly more than 5 kilometers or whatever from my ship. I was always very close to it. So you can see the lighting again going kind of haywire here, where suddenly there's a lot of surface light. I come down, suddenly the light fades out, and I'm back to what would be more expected here on the surface. There's no moon, the starlight shouldn't be that blindingly bright, and then magically it's all bright again. So there is something funky going on with HDR that I didn't notice in prior versions. I'm sure it was something that was there, but I didn't notice it quite as prominently as I did here. Come out into the darkness and trying to find what I had landed to look at out here was unfortunately some more of those silly plants. So we're not going to spend a lot of time out here on the surface, but it was interesting to see the plants and then try to pick up all the little pods or whatever. This one spawned inside a rock, which was interesting. There is an interesting delay that you have to wait for it to actually pick it up before you can get off. But while I was here, I noticed that the sky was getting brighter on the other side now, which meant that I'd been here for a full night cycle. That's how long I spent playing around on the surface here, which was pretty fun. And that made me excited because I was like, oh, let's hang out and watch the sunrise before we zip off and go home. This was about a 3-hour total expedition out here on Hurston, and it was totally worth it. I had so much fun just flying around, exploring everything, and seeing what was out here. Unfortunately, there wasn't much, and I couldn't really enjoy the surface with my dragonfly. I can still see my ship, thankfully, behind me there. I'm just looking around to see if there's anything else I want to go find. I see some mineable objects out there, so I'm going to go over there. And when I landed, I misjudged where I sat down. You could see as I panned to the right there before I came exterior that they were just off to my left. But when I got out, I unfortunately went to the wrong rock, so I'm staring at this rock going, why can't I mine this? I thought it was a server glitch. I thought I'd timed out. See all those big rocks right there? I'm like, this looks like the outcropping. So I pull out my tool and I try to mine it like a tool, only to go, okay, it's not a server error, it's a me error. And then just to the side of it was the proper one. I did end up getting back in the ship, and I'm like, where the heck are these? And then I look over my shoulder and go, okay, they're literally right there. They're all right there where I thought they were. There was just a different outcropping next to me that confused me. I just didn't look hard enough. So get out. They weren't right behind me like I thought. That was the other outcropping. So I look over to the right, and oh, here they are. Silly little rocks that look out of place. So I mined a couple of these. Mining these is no different than really mining in space. You just line the tool up and run it. There is a tractor beam function, but all it really does is pull the items closer to you. You still have to manually pick them up. And on a hill like this, if you mine them and you don't get them quick enough, they will potentially roll down the hill and you might lose them. I had a few fall through the surface, which made me a little nervous of falling through the surface myself. Others might have clipped into rocks, and some may just roll and you may never see them again. But it's the same concept. You heat it up, you're close, you monitor it, and then it just kind of falls apart there, and you notice the blocks of whatever sitting there on the surface, and you pick them up. You can see that's the kind of tractor beam one that sort of works. It pulled those near me. I thought I'd pick them up, but a moment later I see them, behind me or rolling down the hill. Doesn't really work that well. Does pull them to you, but again, it does not really work that well. So I mined a few of those, and it was the same green blob, so I didn't want to look at that. It was the different ore, but it ended up being the same view and look as another one, so I decided let's go see what else we can find. So I'm going to head off in the same direction that I was planning to originally. We're going to fly around and go back towards my ship so that I can get everything mapped out. There's my ship way out there in the distance, which I think is still so cool to be able to do. And I'm going to get over closer to it just to make sure that I'm in the ballpark. That way, if I deviate a degree or two as I fly away, I'm not going to break anything. I think ultimately, I don't remember, I got 25-ish kilometers away from my ship when I did this, and I was very pleased with how well it worked. So I'm mapping out the facility that I was originally going to head towards, and that's kind of what I'm setting my direction to now so that I have a direction to fly. And then I am looking at the heading on my compass there on the HUD, and I'm kind of picking a direction that I'm going to fly. So I got pretty close to the ship. You can see I'm very close to where I am. And in theory, if you're within 15 to 17 kilometers, as was the case before in 3 point whatever when I lost it, it should pop back up into range and I can see it. So I figure if I fly 20-ish kilometers plus away, it'll be fine. So I'm going to fly out here to this, see if I can maintain visual on my ship. I'm also going to try to exit and get back in. Hopefully they've fixed it, and that's really what this experiment is. So as I get out here, though, the sun is rising. I'm loving the sky changing. I'm loving the view. This is just so beautiful, and I'm really having a great time out here doing this. But as I get closer, I see something that's mineable that I did not expect to see on the surface, so I kind of pivot here and go down for a closer look. But let's keep going for a little bit here. I hit the afterburners to get much farther out there. This little Pisces is fast. Lining up my degrees again, making sure I'm flying a set heading. Looking back, I still have my ship in the rearview mirror, which is fantastic, and I'm getting the distance on there. I was really just seeing when it would drop off, if it would drop off, where it would drop off, and really just see how far it would go. This way, at least if I lost it, I wouldn't have a problem. And just to remind folks, in the prior video in 3.17, I was on, I forget the planet name, it's a moon at Origin or whatever. I went down to a mining facility there and I flew 20-ish kilometers away from it, and then was going to turn around and go back. But when I turned around, I realized I couldn't see my ship anymore. So I spent an hour and a half trying to find my ship, only to have to go back up into orbit, fly around, retrace my steps. I did eventually find it by mapping out an area where I went, but this time I was being much smarter. I did briefly, you see there, mine the blue ones. It was no different than the green ones. They were just blue in color. Woohoo. Kind of interesting. Bit more fun to mine in space, but it is cool that you can come down here and find some things to mine. And then once the sun came up, I got my first view at this, and this felt so Blade Runner to me with the toxic waste, the polluted atmospheric vibe of this planet as I'm coming in here. And this was so cool. And when I got close to it, I realized, ew, I'm trespassing. Let's get out of here before these missile pods and turrets start opening up on me. I did not know how long I had. Thankfully, I'm in a very fast little ship and I was able to blitz out of there and go back to my ship. But as you can see, entering and exiting my ship, I never lost visual on it. I was able to go out, do some mining, fly my great distance away and get all the way back to my ship without any issues. And I still love, I know we're not there yet, I'm talking a bit ahead, but I still love how the approach on the back of the Carrack looks kind of like a runway. I wish they'd added a few more lights so that when the hangar doors open up, it illuminates those lights to kind of map the way up the back of the hull into the landing bay. But this was cool, to be able to land at sunset, play around at night, be out when the sun comes up and still have the visual on there. I did run through the ship to see if I could use the beds and go to sleep. Really can't. I did skip over it. You can reassign the hospital bed now, so you could spawn on the Carrack if you died. I didn't do that on this expedition. I will probably do that when I venture off into Pyro or Nyx, just to ensure that if I do die, I have a way to recover. The only downside is I can't really store spare spacesuits or anything else on the Carrack properly yet. I know that's partially coming, but before I really go out and explore like that, I want to be able to have some of those with me, especially if I go down into a mine and I have to suicide down there. I don't want to lose my spacesuit and be screwed because then I can't get on the surface as I don't have a suit. So I wish I could close the door on this ship. It looks jank flying around with its butt hanging open. Looks like one of those old school onesies with the flap open to go potty, but whatever. Pisces is a pretty cool ship. All right, let's get this thing landed and then let's take off, because my takeoff and departure from here was so epic. I'm going to kind of preface it while we come in and land and start my departure. I forget the name of the station. It starts with an E, I think. It's basically like the old Port Olazar. I can't even remember what it is. I just call it Port Olazar because that's what I know. But it orbits Orison, geosynchronized orbit. They have one at every major planet, which is fine. The one here in chat, there were a couple people out there griefing and like ship spotting and stuff. So I thought, oh, let's go up there and take a look and see if they take a shot at me. Because I wanted to see kind of how the shield's managed and everything on this ship as I go. But now that the sun was up, I was getting a good look at my surroundings where I landed. The plane wasn't too bad. I probably could have done some flying on the Dragonfly, but I couldn't see enough at night to go out and do that. I also liked watching the cowl come out and surround the glass cockpit. This was a cool feature. I don't know if it really does anything for armor in the future, but it is kind of a cool thing that the ship can do. They kind of committed to that, as it was supposed to make the ship a little more durable. Since it's got an all-glass cockpit, I really, again, don't know if it actually does anything. But because some of the turrets are remote managed and all that, I thought it was a really cool feature now that I can close off the cockpit, and it does make it feel a bit more secure. It does make it a bit more claustrophobic. It makes the ship look more like a roach or something, or some sea creature, crustacean. But man, I love the Carrack. It is such a beautiful and awesome ship. Sadly, I play alone. All right, so we're going to throttle out of here. I'm going to open this because I want to see again. Also like the way that it actually opens in a reasonably realistic way. Now, on my way out, I thought it would be kind of cool to do a flyover of that kind of cool base that I was trespassing on. I thought if I got to it at a higher altitude, I might be able to avoid the trespassing, but I also figured, well, if I'm there, I'm just going to zip up into space and get out of here, and 4.8 was due to launch in a day or two, so I wasn't really too concerned about getting trespassing, since it was announced they were going to do a wipe and I was going to lose all my progress anyway, which is also why I didn't bother upgrading my Prospector or my Super Hornet, and why I came out and did another expedition, because I had everything loaded up in my Carrack, and I figured it's ready to go. Let's go out and have some fun. So this was just awesome to be in this big glass cockpit, looking out below me, like I mentioned earlier, climbing slowly to get out of the area. It's not a very atmospheric ship, but we managed. And then just watching this cool base come in, it really, the whole Hurston thing always reminded me very much of Blade Runner in the way it looks and the design aesthetics, and I like how they kind of kept that. This base, as I got closer, looked very militaristic to me. I don't remember what it was. What I didn't like, that you'll see here in a moment, is as we get closer, different things spawn in. I'm sure it's like a syndicate or one of the major corporations, but it looks like it had landing hangars that you could go land in, which is awesome. So I wonder if some missions and things would do it. And then those domes, I wasn't sure if those were collecting gas or something else, or maybe they were greenhouses for whoever was living there and all that, but I thought it was just so awesome to fly over. Of course, I got trespassing again, so I aimed straight up and just rammed the throttles to full and went up and out to get away from trespassing. But this was just so cool. I would have loved to have seen from like a chase ship as I'm flying overhead, and then all of a sudden this massive Carrack goes vertical. I probably broke everything in the ship as we flew out, but I got up into orbit and then I zipped over here to this station, and it just was by dumb luck the way I came up and the way I came over. I'm looking down on this station from the top, and whoever was out here doing their ship attacks and all that, I guess, was no longer there, but I figured, well, let's come down and have a look anyway, because I really hadn't been out here to see this station before, and I really liked the look and the design of it. It was really cool to see. It was a huge station, and it was just awesome to come around. And as I was flying away, I saw a couple of ships around that I wanted to go look at and situations, and this is the first one. So this is the 890 Jump, and this guy was having some major control problems. So he was trying to control his ship. He had no control over his ship. He could just go in one direction and that was it. So I kind of pulled up next to him as we were trying to troubleshoot and chat. He managed to stop a few times. I flew in formation with him off his side as he was trying to get it going. And then just the view down on the planet was so cool to see with the station and this. And the 890 jump was such a beautiful yacht in space. The way they designed it is so awesome. It's a very different contrast to the Carrack, but I loved how the size of the two ships are pretty much comparable to each other. I think the Carrack, I know I'm closer to it, looks a little bit longer, but I believe they're very, very close in overall size. The Carrack's just a much more packed ship with different functions and features, whereas the 890 is just a luxury yacht and fun vessel to go out and enjoy the world. But man, that's a beautiful ship. I'd never actually seen one in person, so I had fun for probably half an hour flying out here with him in formation as we troubleshot his issue. Randomly, it turns out that all he had to do was lower and raise his landing gear, and all of a sudden he gained full control of his ship again, and then he promptly zipped away. So I flew back to the station just to do kind of a funny size comparison and see if I could actually set my ship down on the station. Unlike Tressler station or whatever it is now, back at Orison, there's no rotating parts on it for like gravity generation or anything like that in the rings or power. So I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to see if I could set myself down on this station. You can get a size for scale size comparison here based on the size of how big the Carrack is and how I am set here. So I tried to thrust myself down onto the station, and while I could set down, you never actually connect with it. You just kind of float there. You can see the suspension absorbing, and then I'm kind of bouncing away. There's no gravity or anything to pull me back down. So I decided to fly away. And when I flew off, I saw this, I believe it was a whole sea that had been attacked or damaged or blew up, or I have no idea. I was just flying out here randomly, and as I got closer to it, all of its cargo popped in, and then you can see me suddenly slam on the brakes like, well, this is a veritable minefield. I don't know what's in these cargo pods. I don't know if they're going to glitch through my shields and smack into my hull and blow it up, but I thought it would be kind of fun to fly out and take a look. I wasn't actually going to go into the hull C because, again, I didn't know if it was glitched, if they were on board having an issue. I didn't want to get shot. I just thought it would be really cool to fly out here and take a look at the ship and the cargo containers, because these are the full-sized shipping containers that you can't store on anything other than the big cargo haulers. So I couldn't fit one of these in my ship. I was tempted for a little bit to see if I could slide one into the ship. I don't have a tractor beam that could grab it. But I thought maybe I could maneuver it into one of the cargo pods. But because the pods don't lower and they don't go out properly, it won't fit. So I decided not to try. But I did want to get out there and go take a look at them. So I carefully maneuvered my ship inside these to kind of park near one and go have a lookie. You can see how big these are compared to my ship. These are huge cargo containers. Just gives you an idea of how much cargo can be hauled on these hull C's and B's and all that stuff out to the station over there. So I also thought it'd be fun to do this exploration outside. So I went up to the observation deck and then actually went out of the airlock into space, which promptly slammed me into the wall because I walked out a little fast. Had to go back and close the door. And then I was just making sure I wasn't damaged or anything like that. And the way I was maneuvering in space was interesting. Unfortunately, it still had me attached to my ship on the map, so I couldn't really see anything, but I thought this was awesome. So I flew out. There's a couple cargo containers, so let's fly over here in EVA mode. Come up on this cargo container, and you can see how big it is. Unfortunately, I don't have a tractor beam on me. This is my mining laser, so I can't really do anything. And again, I thought maybe I could go load it up inside my ship. I'm not sure why my thruster's running while I'm parked, but I thought I could maybe load it up. But when I got out there and physically saw it, I'm like, yeah, there's no way that's even going to fit to the door. Floor to ceiling is just way too big, but it was cool. I love being able to come out on this upper deck. I really wish that there was a way to like land a ship on top of these doors and take it with me as well, so I could have two snub ships, but not going to happen. EVAing out to the bridge to have a look at the flying bridge, and then down below for the main flight deck. Just a cool ship. So beautiful how they did this. And then the forward thrusters to slow me down, and the big ass station. Now, while I get back in the ship and head back home, there was one final thing I wanted to do, and that was pull out one of my other ships that I originally bought to be the snub ship for the Carrack. When I bought my Carrack, I knew it would come with a snub ship, but there was no information about what type of ship it was going to come with. So I didn't know if I was going to get a piece of junk or if it was going to be a cool ship, because the ship that came with the Connie is an awesome ship, the Merlin, I think, but it doesn't do quantum travel. And I wanted a light ship that I could do some quantum travel with. So I bought the 85X as my little snub ship for the Carrack. Now, I still plan to use it with the Carrack, but the Pisces is such a good ship that I'm not sure I need to. I also loved flying over this guy as he came in to head to the station. I think it was a Saber on its way in. But that was awesome. I love being able to look down. You can see the dynamic clouds as we zip off, but we'll take another look at those in a second. So here's my little 85X that I bought as the original snub ship. It's got some weapons on it. It's a decent little ship. It can do quantum travel, super maneuverable, super small, super low profile. So I thought if I was doing some like smuggling runs or something like that, when the game ever gets far enough to be able to do anything like that, it might be kind of fun to have a little ship that I can zip off in, make some deals, and then come in with the bigger ship where I can just land, load up, and get out of there without making as much noise or being as visible. But the game hasn't really developed along that front, so I don't know what I'm going to do with this ship other than just have some fun with it, because it is so fun. So having a look around it, love the lighting effects, love the look. This ship is just a blast, and it is super fast. So I did rip around here a little bit. I didn't want to get in trouble and end up killing myself, so I did fly up to, I believe it's Tressler Station again, up in orbit. And I flew around the station for a little bit, and that's really where we're going to wrap this video up, because here I am coming in on the station. I'm coming in at a high rate of speed. The acceleration is brutal on this ship. It's better than my 315. It's not super fast compared to the 315, but the size of this ship is what makes the difference, because it is so small and it is so fast and maneuverable. But as I flip around the station here, you can see we took off at sunrise, and the sun has come up where I'm at now. So as I flip around, I'd been flying around the station for a little bit here and waiting for the sun to come up. And then there were a bunch of shipwrecks and crashed ships out there and wreckage that I didn't want to crash into. So we're slowing down to flip up and around, and we're going to look back at the planet and just look at that beautiful, beautiful sunrise. You can see the atmospheric layers. I do miss going through reentry on some of these planets that have thicker atmospheres, where you get the reentry effects, where your ship's actually punching through the planet and you can't go super fast during reentry until you get through it. And I love the three-dimensional view of the clouds on the planet here. It is just beautiful. This was gorgeous. And exploration and just flying around doing this is still my favorite thing. Cargo hauling, mining, those are some fun ways to earn some money. Fighting is trash right now. I don't even waste my time with bounties. It's so broken, and my Super Hornet is not super. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Next version, I may have to pay for some upgrades to see if it becomes usable, but that's just disappointing. I want my Super Hornet stock to be a Super Hornet. I want to make it an exceptional Hornet by paying for upgrades, but sorry for the length on this. 4.8's out now. I will play that, and I will make these shorter. Maybe I'll live stream some of it, but watching me mine for a while is pretty boring. But appreciate you guys watching. I didn't want to throw all this footage and time and effort away, so here you go. Appreciate you sticking to the end, and I hope to see you in the next one.